Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session this afternoon. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Frances Edmonds, and I'm Head of Sustainable Impact for HP Canada, an 80-year-old purpose-driven company whose purpose is to create technology that inspires ambitious and meaningful progress. Our goal for today's session is to think about the networks that we have, when we all have them, to push social purpose to become mainstream. And I have four distinguished panelists to give us some perspective on this today. They are, first of all, Catherine Wood, who is Chief Strategy Officer at Coast Capital Savings, Canada's largest credit union and certified B Corporation, and of course our sponsors today. Thank you, Catherine. Mike McIsaac, CEO and Managing Director of Baker Tilly Canada, the corporate finance that provides banking and transition structuring for mergers and acquisitions to mid-market companies. Tim Caldwell, who's president of Chandos, a purpose-driven national technical building company and the world's largest certified B Corp certified contractor. And last but by no means least, Christelle Francois, former president of the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce and newly appointed, congratulations, VP of Operations at the Federation of African Canadian Economies, or FACE for short. And if that's not enough, she's also the founder of a company, Untitled Co. Agency. So we have a very distinguished panel for you today. So before we get started, in the chat, you should see a link to a social purpose procurement tool. I'd like you all to take a moment to open that up and have a look at it. We'd like to encourage you to leverage this tool as much as you can in your own social purpose building of this how should we put it, mass spreading of social purpose across Canada. And as somebody who spends most of my time, excuse me, trying to change how Canada buys, I think this is a very critical tool in our ambition to push social purpose nationally. So that's your challenge for today. So to get us started, I am going to ask our organizers here to post a poll, and we're going to find out how everyone on the conference today fits into the purpose business ecosystem. So can we launch the poll, please? I'll give everybody a minute to just identify where you fit into the many, many ways in which purpose can be pushed through the business ecosystem. I feel like I should be playing some music here, but we won't push the technology to that point. So I think everybody on the call today should fit into at least one, if not two or three. I know we certainly do. There we go. And we're starting to see some numbers coming in. It's always a race to the finish here. Good to see a large number have a social purpose. And this is pretty much what I would have expected, actually, that people who are attending the conference today either have a social purpose or in the process of setting it, and may have thought less about where there are opportunities to drive social purpose into the business ecosystem. And the research that we've been doing certainly correlates with that people often don't see procurement and the formal relationships you have with suppliers as being a key place to be pushing it. But there are many other areas too, and we're going to be exploring some of those today. A few more coming in. Still seeing roughly most of them having social purpose and relationships with business customers. And that's where we have the strongest opportunity then. And it's good to see some people are already integrated it into sustainability into procurement, because traditionally that has not been very well thought through. Okie dokie. All right. So for the next section, I am going to ask each of our panelists to go into a little bit of detail about their organizations, because they are all social purpose organizations. And I'm going to start with Catherine. So Catherine, what is the social purpose of your company?
So at Coast, we are concerned by the rising income inequality Canadians are facing. So over the years, we have seen firsthand how our members are working even harder to save for that first house, start their very own business. They're kind of struggling to thrive themselves and for their families. So I think we can all collectively agree it shouldn't be this way. So that's why we're determined to help everyday Canadians build better futures together by unlocking financial opportunities that positively impact people and communities. It is a bit of a mouthful, but at Coast, we believe every Canadian deserves a partner who is equally invested in their financial success. Interestingly enough, through our research, we know that rising income inequality and income stagnation has been a growing problem since the 70s. And in fact, income inequality is now a system level threat and probably one that needs to be discussed a little bit more often. COVID has exacerbated these issues and exposed even new vulnerabilities. And so to bring our social purpose to life, we're focused on kind of three key areas to drive positive change. The first one is build and advocate for an
Oh, did Catherine freeze for the rest of us? Okie dokie. I'll give her a couple more seconds just to see if she comes back. If not, then I'm going to jump over to Mike. Mike, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So let's jump over to you. What is the social purpose of your company? I have to say, when I was first introduced to you, it seemed a little strange to me that a company in your niche would be considering purpose. So please do enlighten us.
Yeah, and I don't think that you'd be alone there in that for sure. So I'm looking forward to all sorts of types of feedback today. But our social purpose, just to I'll jump right to it, and then we can go into some of the other parts of it. But we exist, or our purpose is to unlock the societal and economic value of business in transition. And I'm sure that we'll want to dive into the components of that. So.
Okie dokie. So that's nice and short, as Catherine's was a little longer, so I like that. So how does your organization advance social purpose in business currently and in the future?
Yeah, I think that it's a great question of how a finance-focused company can help with social purpose. And if you break down our what I just said before and said to unlock societal value of business in transition, that's quite unique in the sense that most businesses like mine would only focus on the economic value. And so how do we do it? Well, we're thought leaders in the space, we're educators, and because we're connected to so many businesses and their people and their owners or their shareholders, we get out there and we're talking to them a lot about value and what builds value, what drives value. And we're usually involved at pivotal points in the life of an organization, which could be startup, it could be transitioning to different owners, or it could be somebody investing in the same way. So really, I usually sum it up as buy, sell, and invest. So what do? We are often putting on our own webinars and seminars, and we're involved in social media and talking about social purpose. We had one of our first webinars last week that was solely focused on social purpose. We had Coral Strandberg come on, thank goodness, because she can really talk the talk about ESG versus social purpose, and I can just focus on value inputs around that. So that's really. Yeah, and that's sort of how we're living our purpose is educating. We've also written a white paper recently that we're releasing in conjunction with this seminar and summit, and it has to do with what's the value of your values. And so value of good really is what, if you summed it down. So that's how we're doing it.
So that's pretty interesting, because I think it's a largely blank space for you to move into, right? And you're probably the only company in your sector doing this. So real trailblazing, so to speak. So what's your motivation for doing this?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if we're trailblazers. I think there's other groups that are probably very similar to ours, but just don't know what to do. And I said the why is, 20 to 30 years, don't want to age myself, but of being a part of, a corporation or a company that has a mission or a vision to be something, like the best in the business or the best product in a territory like BC or Western Canada and Canada. That probably sounds familiar for other organizations, that our mission is to be the best corporate finance in Western Canada. But, over those years, I think that I've been a part of businesses that had core values that didn't really align with that business mission or vision. And I had my own personal values that may not have been aligned with the business or the shareholders or the owners of those businesses. But I really wanted to have that alignment. And I wanted the alignment across my personal and my work life. And also I wanted a purpose that contributed beyond, just being great at, which we are, no plug there, at what our business does. And when we bumped into Coro and the Social Purpose Institute, I think that was one of the first times I really connected that you can have this why that's greater than just what you do, and what your organization is best at. You can have this why and this purpose that's bigger. And I think that that's super important. It's connecting for somebody that's maybe, at the middle part of my career. And I think it's really something that people at the beginning of their career are looking for now as well.
So I'm hearing alignment between personal and professional goals and feelings. And that's an important point. So let's come back to Catherine. Are you able to speak now, Catherine? You're showing on mute. See if we can get you off mute. And the follow-up question.
Yes, I'm back.
Great to have you back. Okay. How does your organization advance social purpose in business and currently and in the future, if you have some plans?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think that everyone in attendance today, we all know that no one person can make meaningful difference on these societal issues. Collective action is what's required. I think it is important to note that Coast is in its early days of growing its social purpose ecosystem. And like many of you, we have lots of questions about the best way forward. But we know that encouraging more businesses to consider adopting social purpose will advance the purpose economy. So what have we done today? Not dissimilar, to some of the comments that Mike had, but, to start off with, our social purpose office joined forces with our procurement team. And we conducted a workshop. We had with our suppliers, we actually had about 28 suppliers attend to share information about our social purpose journey, how we plan to collaborate and achieve our purpose and advance the purpose economy. As was noted earlier, a lot of people are, a B Corp or pivoting to a B Corp, but I was just so impressed with the level of engagement. And, interestingly enough, I think maybe one or two of our suppliers are here in attendance today as a result of that. But, the interesting part here is that, post that, we ended up having someone connect us into their network. And the point here is that the purpose economy, I think, offers new ways to chart growth and expand. Secondly, we've already integrated social purpose into our supplier code of conduct and embedded it in our RFP process. And it is going to be part of our quarterly and annual reviews with all of those strategic relationships that we have. We've begun to explore products and services that can drive shared value. And I think this idea of collective goals in the future is going to be very interesting for both Coast and our partners. We've created a decision lens and design thinking methodologies to support various functions across Coast to incorporate social purpose into our experience and fulfillment strategies. And we look to extend this kind of into our partner ecosystem. And as I mentioned before, possibly over time, we can have collective goals aligned. So finally, I think, Mike touched on it, get involved. The Social Purpose Institute, we are and really promote that. They provide other companies with social purpose education and the opportunity to embark on that social purpose journey. And, in sponsoring the conference today, we hope to advance the conversation on the importance of growing the purpose economy in Canada. And I think, we'd all collectively agree that this is really an important conversation to have.
So just to summarize there, you're finding business benefit and you see it as an opportunity to grow and expand the actual function of the purpose-driven ecosystem as well, right?
Yeah, like we really just see it as a business imperative. I think we really feel by, doing well, we can do good. And, conversely, we can do good by doing well. And we see that the social purpose, that mandate really can galvanize us, our company, our ecosystem, and the broader society. So yes, to your comments.
Excellent. Okay, let's quickly jump to Tim then. What's the social purpose of your company, Tim?
It was great to be here today. Yeah, so Shandos's social purpose is we exist to build a better world. And it's pretty broad. It gets expressed by 4 major missions that we have as an organization. And they kind of ladder out from the thing closest to us as our company to the thing furthest away. So it starts out with a mission around our company. And so we're 100% employee owned and a B Corp contractor. That to me is really about restoring the middle class. We have a single class of voting share that's open to anyone in the company. And the construction industry is one of the last great escalators that can take people to the middle class. And we think we have the ability to create wealth for great folks in Canada. So that's the company mission. We have an industry mission to move the industry towards collaboration by championing integrated project delivery and inclusive hiring. There's a huge opportunity to move the needle on inclusivity in the construction industry. We have a community mission around building thriving communities via community benefit agreements. We're advocates of that in Canada and huge proponents of social procurement. We have the ability to change people's lives by giving them high-paying construction jobs and training that sets them on a path towards that. And then lastly, we've got a mission around the planet where we recycle waste on 100% of our projects. And recently, we're just in the news with an announcement to be net zero, including our supply chain by 2040. I think we as a contractor have this great opportunity to use the leverage our supply chain to impact Canadian society for the better. We'll do 940 million of sales or so this year. We've got 600 employees, but every day in Canada, something like 3,000 people go to work on our job sites. So we've got a lot of influence, and we can use our purchasing power to influence society. And I think that's great.
Excellent. So as we sort of look to the future, how do you see you really pushing that a little harder? Because you're doing so much great work already.
Yeah. So there's some great work that's being done in Canada around procurement policy, around hiring contractors and making, say, 20% of the selection criteria based on our ability to positively impact Canadian society. And so that's a big conversation around social procurement as well as community benefit agreements. But then also we need to walk the talk ourselves. And so with respect to embodied carbon, we can make the carbon footprint of the various materials that we're using in these buildings visible to our clients. And we can pick lower carbon steel as opposed to a high carbon solution. And we can actually lead on that front and make it known to the market that we're going to make selection criteria based on social value. And it's going to be part of the selection criteria. It'll move the market when we do that.
And that's excellent. There's a bit of a push-pull there, though, between a supplier and a buyer, right? It's an interesting dance, I would say. Excellent. Yep. So what's your motivation for doing this?
Well, for me personally, it's just never been enough to go to work and build some buildings and make some money and have a bigger car or a faster house or a faster car or a bigger house kind of a thing. People want to have an impact. They want their work to matter. They want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. And so for me personally, it's about that. And I think it's about building a truly great company, a company that gives back instead of taking away.
Excellent. Short and sweet. Okay. And last but by no means least, Christelle. So how might FACE or the Chamber, because I know FACE is very new for you, support social purpose in business currently and in the future?
Absolutely. So, I mean, during my time at the Chamber, the mission was really to be able to provide resources and training for Black entrepreneurs across Canada who are often marginalized, and removed. Excuse me, that's my puppy that you guys are hearing. Yeah. And so providing those resources, right, and training to ensure that there is true equity and opportunity for Black entrepreneurs across Canada. And so one of the things that's being done at FACE as I've transitioned at the Federation of African Canadian Economics is not only providing those resources, but more importantly, also providing the capital, right? So at FACE is providing that capital to those entrepreneurs by providing a holistic analysis in terms of the opportunities for those businesses. And that's really driven by, different research that's been conducted, especially earlier this year. We had a report that was released in partnership with the BDC where we were really examining what are those key challenges that Black entrepreneurs across Canada were facing. And one of those key things was really, access to capital. And so we provide those resources, that training with that unique perspective, and also ensuring that we understand the various nuances that marginalized groups such as Black entrepreneurs face, and how can they also have that sustainable approach for success as they continue to grow.
Excellent. And then for your own company, what role might your company play in supporting the social purpose in business?
Absolutely. So at my business, Untitled Co., we really work with companies and organizations to find different ways in terms of how they can really amplify and grow their visibility, whether it's through their public relations strategy or through their various revenue modeling approach. But what we're looking to do is incorporate different frameworks that these companies can also integrate to ensure that not only are they able to incorporate really this social purpose driven kind of products and offering, but really also understanding how much value it brings for them to have longevity, especially with the newer markets, right, where we're really seeing that emergence of clientele and consumers looking to partner and to purchase from companies that have that type of value system, but also sustaining their staff, because we are also seeing that pivot and in employees looking to work for companies that have that social purpose and mission as well. And so that's how we plan to continue to further that mission.
Very cool. And that business longevity is an important piece. Corporate Knights, when they did the analysis of the Global 100, not only do they show that businesses that are on their list of Global 100 most sustainable corporations, not only are they performing across a wide range of measures, they tend to last longer. So that's tied in with social purpose for sure. So what's your motivation for doing this?
Yes, I'm truly motivated by honestly being able to see equality and equity. As you can see through the different organizations that I've worked for, whether it's the Chamber or now being at FACE, I'm really driven by ensuring that there is equal opportunity in terms of the landscape, but also helping companies and organizations find purpose and how they can really weave that into their offering and their value proposition. And that's part of the work that we conduct at FACE, is really helping these entrepreneurs and move forward and have that type of success. And I'm just driven by being able to contribute to that way, right? I don't think I can solely be the one to change that, but I think I can make a small ripple effect in that overall mission.
Well, you get to practice it and preach it to other people through the wider organization. That's great. Okay, so we have a bit of a baseline on where all of our panelists are coming from. So I'm going to ask each of them a couple of other questions. So let's start with Catherine. Hopefully she's still with us, yes. So what's your advice to other organizations that are interested in encouraging businesses in their ecosystem to become social purpose? What would your advice be?
So I'm going to break down my advice maybe into three parts, and recognize my comments are based on being early in our journey in terms of our ecosystem. So build awareness, education is key, take advantage of the resources at the Social Purpose Institute, impressive capabilities across the board, and though the workshops on business are particularly good. Educate different functions on social purpose. This kind of maybe speaks a little bit more to the intrapreneurship, but find champions. We have an ambassadors network at Coast, and it really helps, with the change management and adoption. I think it's a new approach to business that does require learning, and would recommend co-designing solutions, operating models to really embed social purpose into your organization. I think we all learn by doing. Secondarily, focus outside. Connect, your leaders and employees, garner insights, build that network. I think by connecting and learning from each other's experience, there are a growing number of B Corps and the alike, or those interested in pivoting. Obviously, have many here today. But this is critical so that they can, work and grow that network, learn how social purpose can be delivered in their company, and over their ecosystem, and obviously drive greater engagement and solution sets for the ecosystem. As I mentioned before, I think this collective action is what is required to solve these larger scale issues, and a network is needed to do that. Finally, my third piece of advice is look inside, invest, embed, and measure. I think we heard these in other sessions today, but like any other venture, make the appropriate investments, build the plans, spend the time ensuring the employee and leadership have a clear and emotional connection to that purpose. I really do think you have to take it down to all levels. It's got to be built into job descriptions and performance reviews. We've actually looked to incorporate a social purpose goal into our individual performance metrics. Hire people into these functions that are aligned to your purpose. We often test for technical ability. Let's test for social purpose and values alignment. I'm also proud to say that, at Coast, as a result of launching our social purpose office, we do have also a corporate social purpose KPI so that it is front and center for all of us at Coast. So just really in sum, get focused, build momentum, stay the course over time. Don't let it wane, I think is the only way forward. And the beauty of social purpose is I think there's something in it for everyone. And it does truly have the ability to galvanize, as I mentioned before.
Excellent. Very comprehensive. All right, Mike, how about you? What advice would you give to other organizations?
Okay, well, I'll take a little bit of a different approach to this response, but there's Coro had reminded us last week about a 50-year-old or so statement around the purpose of profit companies is to maximize shareholders' profit, and so the challenge that I would often get back from business owners is around, well, how do you align purpose with profits? And for the other attendees here that aren't in a for-profit organization, you might be part of a nonprofit organization or a government organization. In those cases, there's still a concept of profit and aligning a budget, perhaps, or maximizing a budget, or a charter or purpose, and definitely in government, balanced budget. But these three different, organizations or types of organizations, it has to be over time as well. So it's not just today. But what we really see in my pitch to some another organization is that we're really experiencing in beginning of a major shift and cultural transformation, that's disseminating social purpose and really this grand purpose of organizations or people, and it's at all levels of business. And I think that in this sense, businesses, organizations, they must adopt a social purpose and they must implement it throughout their strategy and their organization, and they have to do it in a meaningful way. Otherwise, they're going to be held suspect, and the results could be really substantial to their brand, and financially, really. So I think the argument around large organizations, that they've been able to grow just fine without a well-defined social purpose. They're at a pivotal junction, and it's not just large organizations, it's small as well, but they're at this pivotal junction of your journey and deciding how to respond to very real challenges, and developing an authentic social purpose that's fitting for their organization. So great challenges ahead. And so how do you do that? You got to take your first step, and you've already heard about the Social Purpose Institute. I would really recommend, along your educational path, to start there. We went through the Social Purpose Institute and use that to really educate ourselves and to involve our people and to help find. I say we have our social purpose right now, but I don't think it's going to be stagnant. It's going to change over time, and so you really got to take those first steps towards educating yourself and your team and your organization, and authentically finding it and then trying to live it. And so, yeah, that's what I would say to them right now.
Excellent, thank you. And just as a reminder to the audience, we will have some Q&A after this section. So please do type your questions into the conversation tab here, and I will do our best to answer them. All right, Tim, what's your advice to other organizations who'd be interested in encouraging businesses in their ecosystem to become social purpose?
Well, I would say take your time to really understand how your business model as it exists right now can be adapted to solve some of the greatest problems in the world. And so it needs to be mutually reinforcing. And so I'll use ours as an example. This is a stat that just never ceases to amaze me. There's 1.5 million people who work in the construction industry in Canada. Within the next 8 years, Build Force Canada, who's probably the best group at forecasting labor needs, is suggesting that 700,000 of those folks are going to retire. That's 46% of the construction industry is going to evaporate. And when's the last time you talked to a 13-year-old kid who's excited about being a plumber? We have a crisis as an industry that causes a lot of pain and suffering inside of our organization. So if we can use our social purpose, and you think about on a $100 million construction project, there's $50 million of labor. We can get at-risk youth employed in the construction trades. We can get Syrian refugees employed in the construction trades. We can get women in the trades. We can move the needle and be more inclusive and push opportunity to businesses that are owned by members of equity-seeking groups. We can do these things because we need to do these things, and making that really strong connection to the business case, I think, is really important, and it'll get you instant buy-in when that connection is very strong.
That's a very compelling argument. I had no idea those statistics were as dire as they are, but you're absolutely saying it's a need to do, not a nice to do at this point. So great point. Yeah. And last but not least, Christelle, what's your advice to other organizations?
Yes, definitely. I mean, for me, my advice is really around finding, we know that any organization or business has their why, right? In terms of why they do what they do. Because clearly, if you're not solving a problem, you won't be in business for long, right? But now, how do you leverage that why in terms of the purpose of your company, but tying it into other social, doing that deep dive and that true investigation, as Mike said, authentically finding what that true purpose is, because it's beyond that corporate responsibility piece, right? And so it's really being able to identify what that true social purpose can be, because what we're seeing with the studies that are being released and the trends is that this is truly, not only does it make business sense from a fiscal perspective, but it also makes sense in terms of how our world is shaping and how there is kind of this collective approach and how we all need to collaborate for everyone to be able to benefit and for us to have longevity. And so my advice would really be able to encouraging those organizations to find those key elements within their organizations, but then also helping these businesses tap into that as well, right? Because the more we have businesses and organizations understanding the value of having a social purpose and how much more compelling and how much more it will resonate with your audience, I think that will truly be able to really shift things in the way that it needs to be. And I think because it's somewhat still relatively new to many businesses and company and organizations, it's really conducting that research as well to fully understand what that means for your organization or for your business, so that we can really shift things along.
And being able to see the power of this as a movement, right?
Exactly.
It will find them customers, it will grow them business. For sure.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, any questions, please do put them in the chat. And I've just got one more quick round of questions here. And again, I'll go back to Catherine. So how, you mentioned this a little bit about the depth of training and KPIs and all the rest of it that you put in, but how do you create this internal enabling environment for social intrapreneurs to lead on these efforts? And, having it put into every employee's goals is key, but that doesn't make it happen necessarily. So can you give us a couple more tips?
Yeah, so I think I was sharing previously just about this ambassador network that we have, and it's a set of 40 or 50 people that really take on, do you know what I mean? It can be different people, but take on different actions and then help people go through what we call table talks, having a discussion about it. And then I think the key part here is, in a lot of cases, co-designing and using design methodologies to create solution sets for problems that we have. So, i.e., say we're focused on income inequality, we can bring a group together that can have a bit of a discussion. What is the problem we're trying to solve for this given segment or this given problem? And then work through some design thinking. I think that kind of embeds, it helps people understand, it helps people be empathetic to those that we're trying to solve a problem for. So I think that intrapreneurship requires maybe a bit of an ambassador network. It requires conversation over time. And as I said before, I do believe it really requires doing and being part of owning where you're going. So, for us, that's really what we're kind of endeavoring to do and think about in terms of kind of being more agile in design in our orientation. I think, Mike made the comment a little bit earlier, but I think it has a lot to do with, it has to be authentic. It has to be something that maybe morph and owns over time. And so I think that role has a lot to that intrapreneur has a lot to do with, your success in bringing social purpose internally. Secondarily, as I said before, I think it's also something that can be shared within your ecosystem. So again, as we did the supplier workshops, those ambassadors then can go out into our supplier workshops and then maybe even help those firms do kind of a similar exercise so that they can embed their social purpose more broadly. Because I think it's this idea that we're all working together through some collective goals that I think will be really impactful.
So that's sharing your knowledge and expertise deeper into your supply chain or customers or whomever. Excellent. Okay, that's a good point. Mike, any thoughts on that, how you create this internal enabling environment?
Yeah, I love it when I have to look up words. So in case anybody else had to look up intrapreneur and find out that was your internal leaders, right? Your internal leaders. And I think that, I'll answer it from a business owner's perspective, in that you can't pull or push the bus all the time. If you've ever tried to implement a software and push it onto your entire organization and realized how futile that is, it's the same situation here. I think everybody needs to be inside the bus, on the bus, and driving together. It needs to be collective. I've already said authentic, but the people on your team, they want to be involved in driving change, and so. They have to be involved in the process. Otherwise, you're just going to fall flat on this one, I think. So that's the main thing, I think, for being open to that. And if, as a business leader, over many years and decades of running businesses, when you're making decisions inside the business, the more people that are involved and have a voice, the better that decision is going to be, and it'll be the same for driving social purpose. And I think that's the most important part for it.
That's for sure. And you made me smile about the intrapreneur. When somebody called me an intrapreneur, I didn't know what it was either. And when I read it up, yeah, that is what I do, isn't it? Yeah, so good. Tim, over to you.
This is similar to the comment I made with the last question. All of this needs to be at the center of the business. It can't be over there. If it's over there, it doesn't happen. We found the best way to make things like this the center of the business is to get our customers to want to do it. And so an example, in the construction industry, many of our clients don't know that you could do 10% impact spend on a $50 million deal at zero premium cost. So we go to the customer, we raise awareness, we create demand, we win the work because we're uniquely qualified to deliver. The customer then says to our operations people, well, I hired you because you said you were going to do this, and I've got a bag of 50 million bucks that I'm going to give you. So now you need to do it. And it's at the center of the business as opposed to being over there. I think that's really key.
Excellent. And Christelle, what do you think about that?
Yeah, for me, it's really around having companies create this safe space for those intrapreneurs to be able to really shine if they need to, right? So how do you create an environment whereby employees and staff feel that they can contribute to those initiatives? And oftentimes it does need to come from the top down, right? And that comes from the C-suite level, creating and fostering that environment that encourages staff and employees to want to contribute their ideas, to give them the power and the freedom to also implement those ideas and execute on them as well, right? To reinforce that, especially because once you have employees that are engaged in this way, especially where it's around causes that they either really believe in and that are also tied to the organization, then it's in your interest to want to empower that, right? And it's about creating that safe environment whereby, and culture, right? Not all environment, but that culture where those employees feel empowered to do so, because you want to reward your intrapreneur. So whether you create that environment by, saying yes and allowing them and creating that visibility for those employees, or it's also involved in terms of their performance as well, right? Whereby it's rewarded until it's just originally part of the culture. But oftentimes it does have to come from the top down in terms of how it'll be received. And I just think that it's completely worth the while to create that environment for intrapreneurs to be able to feel that sense of ownership and that sense of contribution within their organization, because they will be your champions internally and externally for your company.
For sure. They will get that job of change management done, for sure. For sure.
Right.
Okay, so let's open up for some questions. So I'll throw this open to the panel, whoever wants to answer. What advice do you have for young startups, specifically where resources are limited? Social purpose procurement can be a challenge when you're fighting for the financial survival of your business, or even COVID survival of your business. This is a common concern and question from our students. Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Oh, was that a tie?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. But I know what you're going to say, maybe a little bit. But I mean, access to capital is a big issue for startups. I know Christelle is going to talk about it, but I mean, I think there's a lot of groups out there that are looking for something, alignment between what their values are and alignments as to where they're investing their money. So I think that you shouldn't be afraid to differentiate your business based on your social purpose, what you believe in, because there is a lot of investors that will value that, and and I think that when people would think, well, it's going to be more expensive or something, but actually probably the opposite way. The access to capital is going to be a little bit cheaper in those scenarios where you're authentic to a social purpose that resonates with there's private equity groups that are solely based around social investing, so don't be afraid of that.
And growing number of social investment capital funds, for sure. Okay, next question. How do we build the capacity when resources are tight? It's very linked to that last question. Who would like to jump in on that one?
Okay, I guess I'll take this one. In terms of increasing capacity, I mean, I think for any new business, one of the key things that you perhaps want to explore, especially when you have limited resources, is exploring how you can collaborate with other startups as well. We are seeing this extreme boom of other new businesses and entrepreneurs who are in the same situation where some of their resources are also limited. So it's exploring different collaborations and partnerships that you can do as small or medium-sized businesses, right? In terms of having that exchange in terms of services. Exploring also, can you also possibly, work with even younger students, interns, to be able to have that in terms of your business. And then also just being creative in terms of thinking outside the box in terms of what are some ways that you could really execute on some of your offerings as a business that allows you to cut costs, but allows you to still have impact. So it's really kind of thinking in a different way and exploring how you can position yourself in a way that allows you to still be competitive while you still collaborate. Because through collaboration, it allows you to have those partnerships. It allows you to gain visibility and credibility, which is good for your business as you continue to grow. So that's what I would definitely encourage those who have limited resources is to look to partner. And you'd be surprised, a lot of businesses are completely open to that, especially post-COVID. It's all about collaboration to really expand your business.
Radical collaboration is my favorite phrase these days, because we're never going to fix the problems we have unless we can collaborate and share resources, expertise, intrapreneurs, knowledge, whatever it is, for sure. Next question. How do social organizations get included at these tables? I'm not quite sure what a social organization is, but maybe one of you want to have a guess.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. I think organizations who are buyers of services and products need to be overt about reaching into the supply chain to understand what the social enterprise ecosystem looks like, and bring them to the table. An example of something we do is it's almost like speed dating. So imagine a small rec center, and we've got a whole bunch of our contractors and engineers and people doing their thing, and we bring in 20 or 30 local social enterprises, and they share with the room the services and products that they can provide for a project. And it never ceases to amaze me the excitement that happens with the buying organizations. They say, I never knew I could do this. This is great. Keeping in mind, we've got this labor crisis in the construction industry. So everyone jumps at the opportunity to find alternative sources of labor. So I just think making those connections and raising awareness about the capacity that already exists is a very important piece of this.
I'm going to jump in and just throw in the other piece here, which, I personally experience is it engages your employees. Very highly engages in your employees, and an engaged employee is a more profitable employee who will go that extra mile to do that last little thing, finish that customer order, whatever it is. And I always call it the gift that keeps on giving, because you really can't measure the impact of how far that goes. So very important from an employee engagement perspective. All right, so last question here, just quickly. For companies who have a purpose that's focused on a single environmental or social goal, how do they focus on their purpose without ignoring other critical considerations? And this is that triple bottom line thing, I guess, to be part of the business's core strategy: gender equality, inclusion, living wages, resource efficiency. Does a focus on purpose risk being too narrow? How do we seamlessly integrate all the things in capital letters? Who's brave enough to answer that one?
I've got an example of that. So, there's a whole school of thought about buy local, right? That makes a lot of sense. But the reality is, if you consider an environmental footprint and I'm buying steel, it makes sense for me to buy steel from Quebec and ship it to BC, because the embodied carbon is a fraction based on where the energy is used. So those two things are at odds. And so how you reconcile those sorts of things are important. What we've done in that area is to kind of work with our clients to come up with a hierarchy. First this, then that. And we don't try to have a one size fits all solution. Every project's different. The dynamics on every project are different. But we have the conversation about how we square that circle when those sorts of issues arise. And I think that's the best you can do with it.
So it's not taking your eye off any of the balls. It's trying to make sure that they're all in play, but some are the primary focus and some will be a secondary focus, and it will change over time.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Good answer. Thank you. Okay, so before we get into some breakout groups, I'm going to ask each of you to give me one final idea of how businesses can motivate or encourage other businesses to adopt a social purpose as the reason why they exist. And I'm going to start with Christelle, because she's been going last for the whole time. So Christelle, not to put you on the spot this time, but please do tell us how you can give us one final idea.
Yes. So for me, final idea for businesses would really be to tap into the benefits, right, of finding and tapping into that social purpose. It's beyond the personal fulfillment that you and your staff who believe in this similar vision will be able to feel and execute, but also the impacts, right, and the longevity that you will see in terms of the rewards to your business. The stats really show and prove that, you know, not only will you have a much more retained employee performance, right? Because we are seeing the great resignation happen, and we're seeing that the cause of that great resignation is behind employees not finding value in terms of where they work. So we're seeing that people are looking for meaning beyond just their personal donations, but through their work and how that's reflected as well. And so I would really encourage to explore that and to really understand the value behind the longevity that your business will be able to benefit from. And then also from a business perspective, the more you have that social purpose that is driving your business model, you will be able to tap into your niche audience as a business as well that will be along on that ride with you. So again, it makes business from a financial perspective, but also for the longevity in terms of your staff and attracting the right partnerships, the right financing opportunities that make sense for your business, because it'll be very clear in terms of where you are and what your mission and purpose is as a business.
Excellent. I can add to that, you know, some of the managers at HP who maybe weren't talking about this very much have suddenly had to become very expert on this because their new hires, as they're interviewing them, are asking them questions that they might not have known the answers to. So that's a pretty good one. Tim, over to you. One final piece of advice.
I would just say you got to just start doing some of this stuff. You know, there's too much analysis paralysis that goes on in this space, and you get a sense of how your business model can solve some of the biggest problems in the world. That tends to pop out pretty quick, and then just get on with it in the most obvious way you can start, and then it evolves from there and it grows from there.
Excellent. And Mike.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I think how I would motivate some of these businesses to start, I think people are asking us, you know, what we can help answer anyways, is how can, you know, social purpose influence your business value? And, you know, I think I mentioned before, we're launching a white paper today, and it sort of highlights 6 key drivers of corporate value. And obviously there's lots of different values of drivers of value, but these ones are related to social purpose. There's not enough time to go through all of them. I am going to highlight one of them, but before I do that, I'd say, you know, we don't have it all figured out. This is along Tim's line. We don't have it figured out. We're not perfect, but we're willing to jump into the arena, you know, like getting into the corners. It's a hockey analogy for my kids, you know, and figuring it out as we go. And we're going to make mistakes. But one of those key drivers, that I did want to highlight, is innovation generation. And I think the nice part about that is, you know, looking at things with a different lens on. You know, when we're not, you know what, we're not focused on any of those in particular, but turning waste into a resource. Like, how do you do that? And when you hear about it, it just warms you inside that somebody has come up with such a great idea how to look at something differently. And, you know, not talking about problems, talking about opportunities. And it's really a mindset change. There's one great example that Bongani in our office dug up around chopsticks. There's a company called Chop Value. And, you know, they must have been sitting at a sushi restaurant, probably Vancouver, right? And thought, where do all these chopsticks go? And nobody had really identified it as a problem, but they looked at it as an opportunity and went out and found a way to extract chopsticks out of the garbage and make them into something. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. So
I actually have a plaque sitting behind me made out of the chopsticks, so I can attest it's a good idea for sure. All right, and Catherine, let's have you wrap it up with your one piece of advice.
So I agree with my colleagues. Make it happen through conversation and doing. I believe that, you know, things need to be more human-centered. I've said it before, you know, co-designing, I'd love to be in a position where we were setting goals across our ecosystem, right? As we've commented, a lot of these initiatives or ideas are quite large societal issues, and I think we have to kind of commit to collective action. And so setting some of those goals, I do think, more importantly than anything is, take that action, but walk the talk and stay the course. I do believe that, once you kind of go down this road, you can kind of pivot, but it does have to show up, your social purpose and everything that you do, or you will quickly be seen as not authentic. And so finally, I think we would all agree, you have to celebrate then the wins, celebrate and create programs and initiatives and show how, what was the process. And I do think, Francis, to your point, I do think it's a great way to motivate, embed the thinking and, create that engagement that's necessary. And maybe I'll just, close with, I do believe the beauty of social purpose is it's something that everyone can participate in. And I do believe that, it can galvanize not only, your company or the ecosystem, but I think it is what's required for society at large.
Well, that's a perfect note to end this session on. Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to thank you and Coast Capital for sponsoring this. Very valuable conversations we're having here. And it doesn't happen without somebody stepping up and being willing to support the rest of us in discussing it and sharing our learning. So thank you again, really appreciate that. So I'd like to thank our 4 panelists here, really for sharing your insights and encouraging us all to just get started and learning about the potential of this. So our next stage is we're going to move into some breakout rooms. There's 2 routes you could be going. Some of you may be going into a low carbon economy office hours instead, but the rest of us are going into breakout rooms, and you can see in the chat here the questions that we'll be covering in the breakout rooms. I believe all of our panelists are either chairing the breakouts or will be attending, so you'll get to have a little bit more one-on-one time with us. And I think that will call an end to our session, and we will move into the breakout rooms. Thank you again, panelists. That was an excellent discussion. Look forward to seeing you in the business world at some time in the near future.